So Siddheshwari is a yoga teacher. She's a wellness expert, longtime meditator devoted to embodiment as a pathway to self-realization. She teaches that a healthy body is the foundation of mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. When honored as a living temple, it becomes our gateway to deeper spiritual exploration, connecting us to higher dimensional intelligence and our own greater being. Her work weaves together natural detoxification, high vibrational raw and living foods, yoga, and meditation to enhance the body's living energetics, supporting physical healing, cellular vitality, a healthy, lean body weight, radiant beauty, and longevity. With a background in psychology and over 30 years of meditation experience, she takes a deeply somatic approach to healing. She gently guides people to release emotional and mental conditioning, clear subtle energetic pathways, and access their full creative potential and inner freedom. A natural tantric yogini, she lives close in relationship with the earth and the elements, finding joy in simple living and inviting others to reconnect with their intuitive body wisdom and the sacred intelligence of life itself. So let's just welcome her on the show. Are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, James.
All right, welcome to the show.
Thank
There's
you.
uh there's so much going on right now out there. I don't even know where to begin with some of these things. The I know we've got, your workshop coming up. It totally embodies everything that's ECETI, which
Yeah.
I love, all of the
Mhm.
teachings. I wish I would have wrote that myself, that's basically. But this is coming up on, let me see, we've got it June 11th, or is
I
it
think it's
May
May
31st?
May 28th or 29th.
Okay, I've got different things written down
Yeah.
here.
End of May, the last weekend in May,
Yeah, last
basically.
weekend of May. I think says May 31st on here. I don't know why. But yeah, last weekend of May. And we're unorganized because I'm doing this from my house. I'm not doing it from the studio, and everything's kind of in our in different places. So it's hard to get this show together right now, but we'll get back on track. The but anyway, your workshop, it I know you've done one before and they're amazing. They're I don't I guess the bio I just read, you're going to be covering all that in your workshop. So if you want to talk a little bit about how you're going to structure the workshop or how the workshop is going to go. Well,
Yeah, yeah, sure. I'd love to. So the main intention, as you know, and anybody that's interested in probably tuning in for the retreat, it's a contact yoga retreat. And so the main intention is to help people to really prepare themselves for contact if they haven't had any contact, or if they are having contact, to deepen that experience and deepen that relationship, and also to integrate it. So, not just having an experience, but integrating it into the larger picture of our life and our life experience. And so, throughout the retreat, there's kind of three main core themes that I'll be focusing on. One is really getting deeply grounded in the earth and connected to the earth, spending time on the earth, getting our feet on the earth, and really aligning our energy with the earth vibration, which I feel is really important right now. And I know you also recommend that, and Jesse too. And then also helping people to clear and harmonize their energy fields so that they're more receptive and more aligned with the right kind of contact. Because, as you know, for many, many years, where we are mentally, emotionally, and spiritually is going to determine if we are trying to reach out and connect with extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings, or even just other humans. Where we are in our own personal energy field is going to determine what kind of energies we're connecting with. And so making sure that we're clearing our energy and that we're really grounded. And then, most important of all, that we're deeply rooted in the self, in our soul, connected to our soul. And of course, yoga and meditation is a big part of bringing us back to center so that we're centered and strong in our being and who we are, so that when we do have contact with other people, extraterrestrials, higher dimensional beings, that we're rooted in who we are. And then that's the foundation for that contact. And so we'll be doing yoga every day. And the yoga that I teach is very gentle. So it's accessible for people who have never practiced yoga. A lot of times I think people will come to me when they're first time taking a yoga class. They say, "Oh, I can't do yoga. I'm not flexible, or I can't stand on my head." Or they have all these, they see things on social media that's very
Yeah.
way out there and extreme. And so they can feel a little bit intimidated. But the true purpose of yoga, it is good for the physical body and flexibility and balance and all of that. But the true purpose is this kind of multidimensional harmonization of our energies and getting connected deeper into ourself. And so the classes I'll be teaching at the retreat are very gentle, appropriate for beginners. And actually, I talked with Myra, and we're going to put in a half hour before the yoga classes for people who have never taken any yoga at all and they're feeling a little bit not sure about taking a yoga class. They can come to that half hour and I'll go over some sort of one-on-one foundational things that they can do during the yoga class to kind of help make it more smooth and make it a good experience for them. And then the workshop that you mentioned, yeah, all those things in the bio basically are going to be covered in the workshop. But again, the main intention is to help people really raise their vibration. And there's many ways we can do that. The whole yogic tradition, many of the spiritual traditions on our planet have a lifestyle component. And so a lot of times people think of yoga as a exercise, the kind of like gymnastics or maybe showing off on social media, but it's really a lifestyle. And all of the lifestyle components of yoga are aimed to help people connect deeper with themselves and to raise their frequency, clear old traumas of the past, clear mental conditioning, belief systems, fears, all the things that would get in the way of us really living a full life and making that higher contact that we're looking for. And so in the workshop, we're going to be going over physical things that people can do as far as detoxification, bringing in, as you mentioned, high raw and living food nutrition, fresh juices, and things that can actually raise the energy potential of the cells, really raising the frequency of our body. And then other practices like conscious breathing, meditation, and other things that people can do to also raise the frequency of their energy body, their auric field, their mental emotional body, all of the lifestyle things that help us live sort of in that high frequency space that's going to align and attract higher vibrational beings into our experience. And then back to that earth connection, really recognizing that this earth is part of our awakening and healing process, and we're intimately connected with the earth. Our body primarily is made of the elements of the earth. And we refer to her as our mother for a reason. And she wants us to thrive. And so the more closely we're connected into the earth as far as nutrition, just touching the earth, putting our feet on the earth. They found that soil is an antidepressant. So, this helps to raise the frequency of our physical health, helps to clear our mental emotional fields. And so the more time we spend in nature, and fortunately, ECETI is a beautiful setting and a beautiful place that's abundant in opportunities to connect with nature. So when we're not on the yoga mat or doing this workshop, we'll be connecting with the nature and spending time just in community, conscious community, and yeah, creating an experience, hopefully, that people will come away from with really rich foundation and not just having contact at ECETI, but continuing that contact and keeping that foundational connection with their self as the core of that contact.
Yeah, it's great. I had this friend of mine say a long time ago, she said, spiritual people are of no earthly good. And I remember, and it always stuck with me how,
Mhm.
you're not grounded, you're not doing the work here on the earth, you're and it didn't make sense when she first said it, but then I really thought about it. I said, if you're not grounded, you can't do the work here. You can't.
Mhm.
And the more grounded you are, the more energy you can bring in, you can
Right.
anchor in.
Yeah.
And the ascension process is actually bringing that energy in and getting every cell, every atom of your being vibrating, and you start raising your frequencies. And so we have the ascension process backwards.
Right.
We're all trying to go somewhere,
Yeah.
and we're all trying to connect to God, and it's within us, and we just have to raise our frequencies. There's nowhere to go, just be basically and know who you are. And I think too, it's so important that we do get grounded and learn loving detachment right now, because that bifurcation of worlds or timeline splits, whatever you want to call it, is intense right now. And there's
Mhm.
some people that are taking the higher road, and some people are really taking the downward spiral, the lower road, and you don't want to get tied into their karma and their stuff, what's going on. So,
Right.
and loving yourself right now to set boundaries is really, really important. Don't get sucked in by being a savior.
Mhm.
It's so many people are trying to fix others and help others and everything else, and we really need to focus our energies on our own ascension right now, because your family, friends, lovers, everybody will pull you off in
Mhm.
10 different directions.
Yeah.
You can still engage them, but do it from a grounded space of loving detachment. And I'm sure that's what you teach, to anchor yourself in so you can deal with this craziness that's all around us.
Yeah, and you make an excellent point because so many people are worried about the world out there, politics, what's going on, like you said, with their families or friends. But there's a reason in the air, in the airplane, they say to put your mask on first. And
Yeah.
so if we're not
Mhm.
grounded and we're disturbed in our own conditioning, our own issues, then we're just adding to the problem. And so, it goes back to that core Buddhist teaching. If that change we want to see, we first have to embody that and do the inner work, do our own process. And then we can be a lighthouse. Then we can be really stable and grounded and may or may not even have to say anything, just by a vibrational frequency, in the same way that group meditation can raise the frequency and lower crime rates and things like that. Well, if each of us are doing that work, staying connected to the earth, doing our own clearings, then we're automatically making those positive changes that we're trying to, tell other people to do, or, trying to go out there and meddle in the outer world rather than just taking care of that center. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's I've just seen so much right now is, like you kind of mentioned, I call it Facebook spirituality, where everybody has the aphorisms and they have the catch buzzwords,
Hmm.
uh and then they're trying to become relevant, so they got to change the old story around. And I mean, a lot of the old stories are being undone by new findings and things like that, but a lot of people are doing it just to become relevant again, just for shock therapy and get hits on their site and everything. And it just really muddies the water and confuses things. And so, I tell people, if you're going to the mainstream news and Facebook for your for your information, to run your everyday lives, you might want to try a different path, or some computer program, that AI, that's going to tell you, how to live. And you got to come from the heart and your own personal God connection, or you're just going to get beat up right now with the shifts going on.
Well, and that really connects with what you're teaching at your workshop with the self-mastery and that the inner sensitivity. So it's like, I mean, now we have access to so much information, but there's a lot of chaos and, as you mentioned, a lot of muddy waters. And so how can people really connect with what's true and what's the truth? And that comes back to that inner sensitivity, connecting with the earth, connecting in with the self, and having that inner compass rather than looking to even spiritual teachers, gurus, and anyone external to get that guidance.
Yeah, that small voice, learning to listen to that small voice, not the loud one in front of you. I just got caught up on that one because I had this dream. The dream was to create ECETI Hawaii and have this beautiful, incorporate the whales and the dolphins into the UFOs. And I had this incredible vision, and I didn't listen to the small voice, unfortunately, and I hooked up with some people who are not who they say they are, or have totally different agendas. And it was quite a lesson. It was $1.5 million lesson that
Yeah. Well, and
but
it's interesting because a lot of these things that don't go well, I think ultimately there still is their wisdom in there.
yeah,
Everything that we're going through, it's like it can look like a train wreck, but if we pull back and say, okay, maybe there was something for each person, each of us involved, whatever we're going through. Like you said, just I can't tell you how many times, like, oh, I got the intuitive nudge and I didn't listen to it. So I think through that
exactly.
trial and error is where we build that, build that connection deeper and deeper. And it's probably an infinite process.
Yeah, there are some major red flags and intuitive promptings, and I let in my mind, the bigger picture kind of overshadow. I go, look what's possible,
Mhm.
and this would be so awesome to do this. And I got caught up in the bigger picture. It's an old saying, there's an old Confucius saying, man with head in clouds stumble in ditch. So you got to pay attention to the ditch and the obvious. I go, oh, that's all these red flags are coming up, and I go, oh, we can get over that. Oh, we can work together. We can rise to the occasion. Everybody wants to do it. It isn't, and the thing we get caught up with is we think everybody wants the same things we want, and they have the same foundation of uh, moral foundation, you might say, or integrity foundation that we do, and we project that on others, and we get caught. We get the big smack in the face because we didn't listen to the other ones, the subtle voices, the subtle warnings, involved in that. But and also too, detachment too. It's like you have to go practice that loving detachment. Okay, I did my best. It was a great vision. It was could have been awesome, but I have no control over free will of other people. And I kind of learned not to tie my camel to other people. And it seems like every time I've done that, I brought somebody else in and tried to work together with people. There's the ego jumps in, and then there's a power play there and a takeover, like a mutiny or whatever, and the other entities come in and feed off of that, and it just becomes a big F fest. It's like so it's I've kind of learned that I'm just going to hold space and do my vision, and whoever wants to join me can, but you can't divert it. You can't divert it off into some other see me dig me program.
Mhm. Well, and what you've done there with ECETI over the last 40 years takes a lot of strength and anchoring to keep things going in a particular direction. So I would be shocked if there had never been something coming, from left field to try to push it this way, push it that way. It's like all of these challenges, they say to whom much is given, much is required. So
Yeah.
when you're doing something in a bigger mission in that way, and as you were talking about, I think in the last show about just people in this community being influenced, and not just the UFO community, the spiritual community as a larger community, and just in the world in general. These are times that are really testing people and showing us, I don't really think there's any mistakes, like you've talked about, just things that we learn. But
Mm.
we are all being sort of called to rise to the occasion and dig deeper. And like you were talking about, the deeper we go into ourself and that earth connection, it's actually a polarity. And so as we deepen those roots, the branches of the tree also reach up higher. And so keeping
Mm.
that balance. And like you
Yeah.
mentioned, it's like if we have our head, if we're trying to only go for the leaves and we don't build those deep roots, then things can get destabilized. And so I think the work that you're doing at ECETI and this contact yoga retreat are ways for people to kind of push pause on their life and the chaos and whatever dramas or things that they're facing, and just unplug for a little while to reconnect with the land and reconnect with themselves, and just kind of recalibrate their compass, get clear on really what do they want, what's really driving their actions and their behaviors and their life path. And this is a time where a lot of people are course correcting. They were in one career or one relationship, and they're
Mhm.
finding that to be toxic. Nutrition as well, the medical system, the whole thing. People are really accelerating that course correction, and the retreats that ECETI offers, and just the space and the land for people to do personal retreats, is giving that opportunity for people to come back into clarity, come back into themselves. And so they're not just tossed all over the ways and following the next shiny object that leads them down a rabbit hole to hell.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's part what you said, because very, very few people, when you ask them the question, what do you want? They just they don't know. They don't know what their own soul purpose is, their unique soul purpose is. They look at you really funny, and you go and you ask them again, what do you want? Not what does everybody else want? What does everybody else expect of you?
Right.
What society expects of you? What do you want? And and a lot of times they can't answer, or they'll give you a shallow answer as conditioned, by the environment, social engineering, you might say. But very few people, I tell them, go find a tree and sit down. First of all, put your hands on it and energize yourself and help yourself ground and heal, and then sit and ask yourself that question, who am I, and why am I here, and what do I want? And in today's fast pace and all this external craziness, it's that people just don't take time to do that. Take your shoes off, go for a walk, like ground, get clear, get out of all the psychic turbulence.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in my experience, we're all, like you said, we're all socially conditioned to want the way you describe it, the sports car, the bronze babe, the house, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, the status, the career, whatever it is that people think that they want. And yet, when we connect deeper inside and get rooted, there's this fountain of fulfillment, this fountain of wealth that we all have access to, that we're all connected to. And we're getting jerked around in the outer realms, especially with social media, but just all of it, pulled over here. People are super busy. They don't take the time. And as you mentioned, not even taking the time to really feel into what they want and make that connection. And yet, when we make that connection, all of a sudden, all the other things, it's not that they're irrelevant. Everyone likes to have good health and good relationships and enough financial abundance and all of that. But all of that becomes a lot richer when we are coming from that rootedness within. And so it's sort of a illusion because a lot of times people say, well, I don't have time to meditate or I don't have time to take for myself, not realizing that that's the biggest investment we can make. And the biggest gold mine is there and everything else sprouts out of that.
I noticed something,
Mm.
and I kind of almost thought about not saying it, but I've been to these conferences, a lot of these conferences,
Mhm.
and it seems like the ones that do the best, unfortunately, are the ones that fit within social consciousness or the controlled narrative and the material, like gaining more material wealth or whatever, it's amazing. And the ones that are authentic, that really are solid, that empower you to make your own personal God connection and get out of the social engineering and the other stuff, they're smaller. And I think it's kind of very chaotic right now, and people are forgetting, look, this is something you need to do. You really need to get grounded and anchored in, and raise your frequencies, and go to the ones that are authentic, and listen to them, and don't make them your gurus. You are the guru. They're just the ones that are authentic or empowering you, to make your own connection with Creator, Great Spirit, God, whatever you want to call it. But it's just an observation I've seen, is that, like, even in the UFO community, the people that are authentic and have the real information about disclosure, who they are, why they're here, the ancient history of the earth and things like that, they're they're like not there. They're not in the big conferences, because if you're authentic, you're kicked out basically. And I think because it's become a business, it's a multi-billion-dollar business now, and it's under a corporate structure. I hate to
Mhm.
say it, but most of it's a satanic Luciferian structure, but at the top. But it's so important right now for people to just say, wait a second, I need this. I need to ground. I need to get in touch with myself, who I am, why I'm here. I need some tools, to clean up my consciousness and my environment and my body, and really take the time, for self-awareness and self-improvement, basically, and cleansing, cleansing
Mm.
our toxic bodies, our toxic minds, everything.
Yeah. Yeah, the deep purge. And it's similar to those if you've seen the cymatics, which they have the vibrational plate covered in sand, and it has a nice looking structure. And then when you change the frequency, which is what's happening on the planet, everything kind of, just the sand vibrates, it makes a big chaotic mess, and then it reorganizes in a much more beautiful pattern or mandala. And so that's kind of what's happening in every sphere of our society and our life. And so some people that are not really deeply rooted, I think it's a bit of a rougher ride because
Yeah.
they're going into fear. They don't have that deep connection to their soul and to the earth. And so, if you're only connecting into that 3D matrix and into the 3D structures that we've been conditioned to think is the, life the way it is, and as this frequency is raising, that all is changing. And so the deep stuff is coming in the same way that the roots of a tree break up concrete. It's like this is birthing from within all of us, actually, from
Yeah.
within the earth, from within the universe, and from within each and every one of us. And so, yeah, I think, we're going through that phase where everything on the outside's looking a little bit crazy and negative and dark and infiltrated in every system. And but it's again back to that polarities. I think is the frequencies rising and we're getting closer and closer to living and embodying truth. Everything that's not true is really breaking up and falling
Yeah.
away. And so that is that kind of chaos that we're seeing. And it can be rough, but fortunately, with conscious community and like-hearted people, we can kind of feel that support and feel connected.
Yeah, it definitely looks like, universal law is pressing in big
Mhm,
time,
mhm,
and everything out of alignment with it is crashing. It's on the downward spiral and being revealed and exposed. And the chaos is the healing. It's the healing in action. And
mhm,
so if there wasn't chaos, there'd be no evolution. There'd be no, forward progression on this. I love that saying, the closer you get to nirvana, the more the demons rear their ugly heads. And the greater your light, the more you're going to mirror and amplify other people's unresolved stuff. And it's just the way of the yogi, you might say, or the Jedi way, whatever we want to call it. It's you have to you have to realize that you got to be able to stay centered walking through the chaos, because we are going in some very chaotic times. And what Babaji always told me was, he said, when these shifts happen, he goes, it's going to hit some like a feather and others like a brick, you
mhm.
know. And depending on if you have a massive ego, you're going to be defending that ego. And if you're done with that, the ego doesn't need defending. You can just say, as you wish, carry on.
Right.
Is that what you want to create? And whatever you take from another will be taken from you. It's just basics. And that's the thing I blow me away is a lot of people in the spiritual community and the UFO community that have just totally abandoned the basics. The basics, the universal law, universal peace, brother, sister love, individual freedom, and prosperity for all. The basics, be kind to each other on the planet, keep a high level of integrity, your word is law, stuff like that. It's just
Mhm.
been totally abandoned. The foundation has been abandoned. And that's why you're seeing all this chaos, because the people that abandoned universal law are having the backlash, the boomerang is and their whole kingdom was built on a false foundation. So it's going to collapse. It has to, for the new world to come in.
Yeah, and as we're going through this process, it is like a deep detoxification on all
Yeah,
levels.
yeah.
And then,
Mm.
something I talk about a lot is multidimensional detoxification because it's happening on all levels, individually and collectively. And in the world of physical health and wellness, when we go on a cleanse or some kind of detox protocol, it gets worse before it gets better. Things start purging out of the body. People can get headaches. They can start kind of feeling, and that's just the toxins leaving the system. And so, if people are aware of that, they'll stick with it and actually go the distance to get that stuff out and then ramp up to a much higher level of health. And the same is true with the mental emotional stuff. It's as we start doing this work, start doing meditation, start going deeper into some of these things, it does stir stuff up. It's stirring it up planetary wide, but it's also stirring it up individually. And so I think it's important for people to realize that those detox symptoms is part of this awakening process. It's part of this rebirthing. And there's going to be a little bit of birth pains as part of that. But if people can stay connected and persevere through that, what's on the other side is such a higher, much deeper, joyful experience than what we're just seeing on the surface level. And I think that's
Yeah.
the thing that people can get disheartened because they look at the news, which how much truth is there anyway? And they look at what's going on and they feel the pressing of the economy and different things and can get disheartened. And that's unfortunate because that actually lowers our frequency and disempowers us. And so there's something really beautiful coming, really powerful coming. And I know you've been talking about it. And so it's my wish to help people connect with that so they can not just believe it intellectually, but actually experiencing it as a living reality in their body. And when we tap into that as a community, people who really have a heart for humanity and the earth, when we tap into that and actually connect with it, it melts the depression, it melts the fear and the anxiety, and oh, you know what's going on. And those are the energy fields where people are making decisions that aren't in the highest and best interest for the collective. You know, that's where people are making these lower level decisions. And so at the base of it is a disconnect from our greater being or from the earth and from truth. So when we reconnect in with that, we can actually get inspired and excited and then be part of the solution, you know, on a frequency level and just in our lifestyle of what we're contributing into the collective to really make this thing grow into the whole process, the whole ascension process, the whole awakening process of where we're all going, regardless. But if we're kicking and screaming or, you know, not
Yeah.
doing it consciously, it can be a rougher ride. And if we take the time to do it more consciously, then we'll actually come out on the forefront and help lead and accelerate the process for everybody.
Yeah, that people are going to
Mm.
need grounding forces, like people that are solid
Mhm.
and that know how to practice loving detachment and not get caught up in all the dramas and all the chaos. And you know, people that are going to empower them to learn how to do that themselves, you know, to get through these shifts and these changes. And I always tell people resistance is futile. You know, it's you're going to have to raise your frequencies if you want to stay on the planet. The whole earth is ascending.
Mhm.
And there's a fail-safe mechanism that's called the soul that's being activated, and people are being activated. And you know, the sun is part of it, the Cygnus, all this incoming energy that's slamming the planet. The earth is just expanding, you know, and she's going to bust loose with some volcanoes, and there's going to be severe weather, and there's going to be a lot of craziness with this shift and this change. And we have to roll with it and just realize, you know, all the prophecies have warned us about this, that we're in those times, you know, and there'll be wars and rumors of wars and all this stuff. Don't get caught up in all that, and just, you know, keep your connection, and that's where your real guidance is going to get you through everything, is by having your soul connection. Your soul's connected to source. And the one other thing I want to mention too is that so many religions and churches are pushing this external God, and it's a jealous, wrathful, fearful, genocidal external God. They're the sacrificial gods of old. And you know, Yeshua disbanded all that. He said, no, no more sacrifices. We're not going to worship these external gods anymore. You're all going to make your own personal God connection. And there's enough room in heaven for everybody, you know, and that foundation right now, it seems to be pressing in really hard, that basic truth, that universal truth. And it's just pushing out all these disempowering programs that keep creating barriers and these external, jealous, wrathful God images that have enslaved humanity through eons. And a lot of people are having trouble breaking through and finding the worthiness and the self-love to make their own personal connections, you know, with greater. And that's a biggie because they think they're going to get punished, you know, by this external source, you know, which, you know, it's amazing how a couple near-death experiences pretty much put that on the back table. You
Mhm.
realize that creator doesn't even have an ego. And it's not a male, it's not a female, it's not a little old man with a laptop taking notes with a lightning bolt to punish you. You know, it's just pure unconditional love and joy and bliss. It's a golden white light, like a plane of bliss, that when you experience that, you go, whoa, I was lied to, you know, about that. And there's no ego, so there's no judgment. There's no, it's beyond that. And that's what all the masters have taught for thousands of years.
Yeah, and that's a deep conditioning. I think even if people sort of mentally can grasp what you're describing and they say, okay, yeah, this, it's kind of making sense mentally. A lot of these programs are deep in the subconscious mind, and it's like people not able to even just give up little like food addictions, addiction to sugar,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. So that's where I think doing some of this inner work, the yoga, the meditation, the clearing processes, helps to kind of clear that stuff out of the mind. Even things, even belief systems we're not conscious of can be harmonized and cleared when we just connect deeper into ourself and deeper into our core, because that energy is the universal energy that can clear all of that. And so I have found that to be more helpful for people than trying to explain things, like even with nutrition when I'm taking people through a cleanse or something. If I can give people an experience of what, where we're going with this, then that changes their mind, about everything. And so it's like that experiential or practical approach then can go and change the mind. Where when we try to change our mind with our mind, we end up going in circles and we get really, analytical and trying to figure all this stuff out. But the truth is there, like the air.
Yeah.
It's already self-evident. And if we can just release a lot of what we're holding on to, then that comes flooding in and it restructures and informs our entire system. So yeah, I think the practical side is really key for people right now.
Yeah, it's like when you make your own personal connection with Creator, God, Great Spirit, whatever you want to call it. I call it the big eraser. It
Right.
comes in, never happened. All your wounds and traumas and wrong conclusions, you gain the wisdom from the experience, settles in the soul, gone, and the emotional energy or trauma around that's released. And and that is the key, to everything is making your own connection. I got to bring you on for a whole show. I mean, if you want to leave a last message for humanity, the earth, what would that be?
Everything that we're looking for, whether it's in the material dimension or even in the higher realms or extraterrestrial realms, is coming from within us. And so taking the time, it doesn't have to be a lot of time, even just 5 minutes outside, like James said, touching a tree, anything that you can do at this time to really connect in with yourself. And it's as easy as asking and having that intention and making that request. So you don't have to be a yogi or a long-term meditator or any of that. Just your pure intent of reconnecting deep into the core of your being is all you need. And so that would be my message, is to just encourage people to take a few minutes to connect within and ideally on the earth.
Yeah. And the land there, he said, people, as soon as you walk on the land, it's a very high frequency place, a very high vibrational place. And it's actually acknowledged by the government, believe it or not, as a purple zone, where the magnetic energies are totally different than other areas, and the veils between worlds are very thin. So a lot happens there that ordinarily wouldn't be happening in, major cities and things like that. But it gives you a boost. It's like like a jump, like you jump in your car when it's dead, it's the same thing. It just gives you a big energy boost. You go to the website, folks, you can see everything there, all the workshops and the classes. We've got Peter Slattery coming up too, again, doing a special remote viewing class and a combined workshop. And if you've never seen a UFO before, come to ECETI. I guarantee you will not be disappointed, because not only will you see them, you'll feel them. They're beautiful beings on some of those ships. And anyway, again, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. We've got to sign off. We're out of time. And keep an open mind, loving heart, pure intent, and get grounded, and that's how you're going to get through these changes and actually learn to practice, loving detachment. You don't always have to be right, and you don't have to be in an argument. And my favorite words are "as you wish." Have fun with that. And I get back into my own grounded state. But anyway, that's it for tonight. So have a great evening, folks, and we'll see you next Saturday.